This is Defiance Daily, dispatches for the Defiant. Hello, I am your host, Miles Taylor, and as always, Wednesday is a special day. This is our weekly mission briefing. This is the day of the week where we talk about real actions we are taking. This is the day where we take doom scrolling and we put it to the side for a little bit, and we talk about real, actual, concrete things we can do and you can do to push back against abuses of power and the lawlessness that we are seeing in our country. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to not talk about the news, because we're going to do that first. We're going to talk about why this week's mission is so important. And our first panel will discuss that. But our focus today, our focus this week is on illegal orders. Our focus is on this controversy that has been bubbling up in Washington about the potential that members of the military are on the receiving end of manifestly unlawful orders. A lot of concern about this on Capitol Hill, a lot of concern about this in the mid to lower ranks inside the Pentagon. And so we're going to discuss that today. And first, we'll do that on a panel where we have special guests. We will be joined by former Republican Congressman Denver Riggleman. We will be joined by the incredible Glenn Kirshner, back by popular demand, by the way. So many Defiance.org members wanted to see Glenn again, and we are thrilled to have him. And we'll also be joined by Seneca Project founder and former Lincoln Project senior advisor Tara Setmeyer. And then after that, we've got a conversation with the team that's going to be working with Defiance.org to go and implement the campaign that we announced yesterday, but which we're going to give you the full details on today. We will also be joined by Scott Goodstein, Barack Obama's former social media guy, to talk about how we are going to raise public awareness across the country to make sure U.S. service members know their rights and have access to legal resources if they need it. And then you will get reminded why this program every Wednesday turns into pro-democracy Oprah, because we will make an announcement. And if you already thought that we put it all out there, well, we didn't yet. There's still more to tell you about this campaign than we've put out publicly. So stay tuned for that later in the program. And finally, our daily segment, Who is Joining the Defiance? We have another surprise today. I did not think this was going to be a name I would utter in the same sentence as the word defiance, at least not in a good way. But here we are. Well, then finally, we'll talk a little bit more about the president's speech tonight. And if you want to stay up late with us, you can. The president is scheduled to make an address to the nation in the Oval Office at 9 p.m. Eastern. We will be covering that live and then afterwards assessing the speech. So if you want to join us later for a special edition of Defiance Daily, you can do that tonight during the president's speech and afterwards. Okay. First, let me take us into what we do at the top end of this program every Wednesday. What is the Defiance win of the week? And I will tell you this, as the deadline narrows to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies, right? These are the healthcare insurance subsidies everyone's been worried about. You, me, anyone who has healthcare and doesn't want to see that check jump at the top of the year. Well, here's what happened today. Speaker Mike Johnson was hit from inside his own party with defiance. CBS News tells the story.
Breaking news at this hour in Defiance. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson, 4 Republicans signed on to a Democrat petition to force a vote on extending Affordable Care Act tax credits set to expire January 1. Check your watch, everybody. That's very soon. Once that happens, that expiration, without a deal in Congress, healthcare premiums for millions of Americans are expected to do this, go way up. Last night, a House committee moved to vote on a GOP health care plan that excluded those Affordable Care Act credits. Well, today's move likely sets up a vote on an ACA extension, at least kicking the can down the road to early January. One of those defying House Speaker Mike Johnson is New York Republican Mike Lawler. Here's what he had to say on the takeout last night on GOP efforts to stop the extension vote.
It's idiotic and it's political malpractice. To me, this is the height of absurdity. It is precisely why things don't get done in this place, because people would rather the upper hand or the issue or the political win rather than the hard work of bipartisan compromise.
So let me give you the details here, folks. There are 4 Republicans who broke with GOP leadership. One was Mike Lawler of New York. You just saw him in the clip. Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, Rob Bresnahan of Pennsylvania, and Ryan McKenzie of Pennsylvania. There's some defiance in the water there in Pennsylvania. And yesterday, Speaker Mike Johnson admitted that about a dozen Republicans wanted a vote, even though he refused to allow one. Now, here's the reality check. While this move does give Democrats the votes needed to force an action, the vote will likely not take place before Congress adjourns for the 2-week holiday recess. That's not good news for you and me and anyone else who's worried about those subsidies. House rules require 7 legislative days before a discharge petition like this can happen. So this isn't going to go anywhere until the new year, and it's not going to go anywhere before those subsidies expire. However, what I will say is the takeaway here is that we're not doomed because the Republican Party under Donald Trump says that they don't want to do anything on healthcare and they don't want to vote. There are enough defiant members still in that caucus speaking out and willing to do something. And as I noted, Lawler isn't the only one who's doing that speaking out. Brian Fitzpatrick told reporters this today in responding to the news. Unfortunately, he said, it is House leadership themselves that have forced this outcome. It's pretty extraordinary right now in Donald Trump's Washington, where Republican leaders see themselves as Darth Vader with a vice-like chokehold on their party members, to have those party members break ranks and call them out. Now, Lawler and Johnson were seen today in what seemed to be a heated argument on the floor, and upon his exit from the floor, the press swarmed Speaker Johnson, and this is what he had to say.
Have you lost control of the House?
I have not lost control.
Because this is the third time.
There are look, we have the smallest majority in U.S. history. Okay? These are not normal times. There are processes and procedures in the House that are less frequently used when there are larger majorities. And when you have the luxury of having 10 or 15 people who disagree on something, you don't have to deal with it.
I have not lost control of the House. That's the type of quote you say when you have lost control of the House, but we'll get to that another time. Anyway, the Defiance win of the week is that we are seeing Republican members of Congress break ranks, stand up for what's right, and force the issue. Okay, folks, that takes us into our conversation today about the weekly mission. And our weekly mission is focused on this campaign that defiance.org is going to be launching with our partners at whistleblower-aid.org. That campaign is called Obey Only Lawful Orders. We're going to give you the details on that in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about the latest with the boat strike controversy, because this is what prompted all of this. This is what prompted us to think about what could we do in response to the president's efforts to intimidate service members, to get them to shut up, to get them to be afraid of exposing the possibility of manifestly illegal conduct. And we decided on this campaign, and that controversy that led to this only gets worse. And I want to talk about that today with our guests. First, let me bring in Denver Riggleman, former Republican congressman. This man knows a thing or two about being a defiant Republican member of Congress. Denver, I assume you had some flashbacks as you saw that first segment.
I did. I know Brian pretty well, Fitzpatrick, so it was pretty incredible to see that. But again, he's got to win, right? So stupidity is terminal. And I think that Mike Johnson's finding out pretty quick.
Well, it looks like they've gotten a little bit of courage through osmosis with you as their friend, Denver. Let's also bring in Glenn Kirshner, former federal prosecutor, just a total rock star. And I got to tell you, I wasn't sure if I was going to say this right at the top end, but Glenn is responsible in large part for what we're going to be talking about today, because a few weeks ago, you may remember, Glenn seeded this idea in our minds about doing something on this issue of unlawful orders. So, Glenn, I don't know if you're going to want to take credit or not, but here we are.
You know what? I will take credit for anything that helps service members navigate the dangerous circumstances that the Trump administration is putting them in. So I'm all in giving accurate information to our service members to keep them from getting jammed up, because Miles, and as Denver well knows, if you disobey what turns out to be a lawful order, you could be court-martialed. If you obey what turns out to be an unlawful order, you can be court-martialed. I know, because I was an active duty Army JAG prosecutor for 6.5 years before joining the Department of Justice. This is to help service members avoid getting themselves in trouble, because the Trump administration is endangering our military members.
There you have it, folks. Well, Glenn, you're going to get more than a participation trophy from us for all of that. Let me also bring in our third guest, Tara Setmeyer, founder of the Seneca Project. Hello, my friend. How are you? Gosh, you always just have the most delightful festive holiday setup there. Look at that. You make Denver look like a total slop tart.
Thanks a lot, Miles.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love Denver and he could never be such things. And but thank you. Listen, we all need a little holiday cheer. It's been a tough year. It's been a tough holiday season, and I'm always here to bring a bit of a bright spot to that.
I love it. It's great to have you guys. And we're actually going to expand this group. This is going to be like the new Fox 5 because we've got one more person to add in because of schedule conflicts on our end. We're welcoming the remarkable Andrew Buckeye, former CIA officer, former intelligence officer, world-class lawyer, whistleblower attorney, and a guy who knows what it means to defend people who want to stand up for what's right. Andrew, welcome, and thank you for joining us, my friend.
Thank you for having me on.
This is a pleasant surprise. Some of my favorite people are all on screen.
Yeah, it just kind of happens, you know.
We should just leave while we're ahead. What a great panel, guys. This was fantastic. Thank you for joining us today. This was fantastic. Let's jump in. Look, Denver, I'm going to start with you because I'll play this clip first, and I want your reaction on the back end. This is what Pete Hegseth had to say about all of the controversy around the boat strikes and this strike on September 2nd and the video of that second strike that's been so debated, where it allegedly shows two people on an overturned boat, unarmed, probably trying to save their own lives before they're hit with another airstrike. And here's what Pete Hegseth had to say about why they can't release that video to the public.
Also going to tomorrow allow the HASC and SASC to see the unedited video of the September 2nd, alongside with Admiral Bradley, who has done a fantastic job, has made all the right calls, and we're glad he'll be there to do it. But in keeping with long-standing Department of War policy, Department of Defense policy, of course, we're not going to release a top-secret, full, unedited video of that to the general public. HASC and SASC and appropriate committees will see it, but not the general public.
Denver, why are they hiding the ball?
Well, let me tell you, first of all, maybe they should be on Signal Chat. We'd figure it all out right now. But I think the real issue that I have with all this, Miles, and I'll be honest, is that I was on the other end. It's incredible to have this panel, especially JAG officers, intelligence. Tara, I don't know if you know, she has a long history in government service. But I was the one, a week after 9/11, I had to deploy to Diego Garcia with the B-1s and the B-52s. And I did the mission planning with the JAG over my shoulder. And even after 9/11, we were able to, literally do legal things. And of course, we were very angry. But looking at collateral damage, you're looking at rainbow patterns and frag patterns for bombs, whatever type of bombs they are. I find it amazing when Hegseth comes on there and says he actually can't declassify when they've showed all these other videos. And my guess is this: they can declassify it. I wonder what kind of ordnance they used as a dump target type of ordnance. Let me explain this, Miles. So at the beginning, you have specific types of ordnance you're going to lay down on a target. If they're doing a come around, right, they have ROE, or they have to get permission in order to engage that target. And I'm wondering if they're not showing it because the engagement of that target would show the helplessness of the individuals, because it's very easy to redact or to blur out the specific type of weaponry or what they're looking at specifically on their HUD, their heads up display, or actually on their targeting platform. So, I'm sorry I got a little bit technical there, Miles, but that's the issue that I have with this, that of course, you get that. And if you can show the other strikes, there's no other reason not to show this strike unless there's some really bad stuff in it. I know that's a technical term, the really bad stuff. But as a mission planner and somebody who knows ordnance, I have to tell you, I think the reason they're not showing it isn't because of classification, not because it's, I would say it's because of the horror of what the American people would witness.
Well, we got a JAG here with us. Glenn, what do you make of Denver's assessment and speculation about why they might not be doing this?
Yeah, a couple of things. So I think it is the horror. I think they understand that it will galvanize, the opposition. And the opposition are people who are against not just homicide, but murder. Homicide is simply death at the hands of another. It doesn't connote criminal conduct. But what they did in international waters is murder. And I'm only sorry that we're getting distracted by the second tap, the so-called second tap, because all of the first taps were murder as well. There are military experts that we may be getting into that when we talk about your new project here, Miles. But, guys like Dan Maurer, who taught constitutional law and criminal law at West Point. He's currently a law professor. Guys like Frank Rosenblatt, the president of the National Institute of Military Justice. I mean, when you talk to the experts in this area, there is no lawful justification under domestic law, international law, the law of war, the law of armed conflict, which this ain't. There's no justification for it. So when Pete Hegseth, releases every damn video that looks like a video game where they're blowing, boats out of the water, but you don't see the carnage, you don't see the human suffering. So, maybe the murder isn't front and center. And then when he has one where I suspect the murder is front and center, he makes up reasons. I don't believe a word that comes out of Pete Hegseth's mouth. But the other thing that Denver said is when he was engaged in, war planning, he had the JAGs, standing, shoulder to shoulder with him to make sure we were doing it lawfully. And, what has Pete Hegseth said? He doesn't want the JAGs anywhere near military operations because they're obstacles, they're impediments to his maximum lethality. The problem is Hegseth wants maximum lethality with minimum legality or no legality at all. He's doing a disservice not only to the people that he's murdered in international waters, but he's endangering our troops in the process.
Well, so Tara, I've got a question for you in a second. I want to show you a clip of one of the senators who's seen the video and get your reaction to it. But first, Andrew Buckeye, I want to throw a question to you, which is that amidst all of this, Donald Trump's response has been threats and intimidation truly at a level that we've never seen from an American president. We've never, ever in the history of the Republic seen an American president sit there and accuse sitting U.S. senators and congressmen of sedition and that they should be hanged simply because they restated the law. They just restated something written in the law. And now that's happened, and it's created this quite extraordinary chilling effect. I want to know how you assess that chilling effect. I mean, you are on the front lines of representing whistleblowers. You yourself have been a whistleblower. You have served in government. Is this making people afraid to come forward and sound the alarm about potentially illegal conduct?
I think the answer is probably yes and no. I mean, first, Donald Trump is all bluster. We see that. He attacks people, personally attacks people online, in the press, in speeches. That's who he is. But when it comes down to it, he's more bark than bite. With respect to the chilling effect of the whistleblowers coming forward, I have to say that we've actually seen a lot of whistleblowers come forward. And more importantly, we've seen senior officials come forward because that's effectively who's left in the government now, right? I mean, he's fired a ton of federal employees. The one thing that I will say that we've seen is that, this is where we're trying to mitigate the fear, is that there is a way for whistleblowers to come forward anonymously. So, in the past, and I've done this in the Ukraine whistleblower matter, is that we've been able to protect the identity of the whistleblower so that way they don't face retribution, whether it is through adverse personnel actions or being doxxed online. So, for example, I've recently been able to facilitate disclosures to various offices, both in the executive branch and to Capitol Hill, where I'm the relator of the information. And if there needs to be clarifying, evidence being produced, the congressional offices or the investigators can reach out to me, and I can facilitate that information. So there is a way for people to come forward lawfully and in a secure way.
Yeah, and I will say, look, there's the old adage where there's smoke, there's fire, and there is a whole lot of fire somewhere here in this administration. We are seeing so many indications of illegality, and y'all, Andrew, are the firefighters at Whistleblower Aid, and so you're the ones who respond, and you do that in a very disciplined way that protects people, as you noted. I want to get back to that in a moment, but first, Tara, like I said, I want to play this clip because Senator Tammy Duckworth has seen this video. None of us here have seen the video. We've only heard the speculation. She has seen the video of that strike, and here's what she had to say yesterday.
Joining us, Illinois Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth. Duckworth is a member of both the Armed Services and the Foreign Affairs committees. Thank you very much for joining us, Senator. Can you give us a rundown on what you heard today?
Well, I heard a lot of chest thumping, but not a lot of answers to the questions that I still have. And I would have to agree with the discussion you're having right now, which is I think the president is trying to lead us into yet another forever war that Americans don't want. If this is justifiable, then come to Congress. We have the power to declare a war. Come to us and ask for an authorization for use of military force. The fact of the matter is they're not doing that. And if they truly were going to go after drug traffickers, then the president would not have pardoned the former president of Honduras who trafficked over 400 tons of cocaine into the United States. So what exactly is he trying to do here?
So Duckworth there, of course, talking about how these strikes are being used as a partial predicate to escalate things in Venezuela and lead us to war. Duckworth also, Tara, later in the day came out and said, based on what she has seen, these orders look to her to be illegal. What she saw in that video looks illegal. And then, Tara, we saw Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut come out and say the same thing. He said, based on what I have seen, this looks like it's unlawful. We saw Ed Markey say the same thing. We saw Senator Richard Blumenthal basically say the same thing. I mean, senator after senator, congressman after congressman is coming forward and saying, look, I'm getting briefed behind closed doors and looks like an awful lot of law breaking here. Do you think this is going to boil over to the point that the public is going to be able to see this?
Well, first of all, I want to acknowledge that Senator Duckworth is an American hero who lost her legs in combat as a helicopter pilot, Purple Heart recipient, and is more of a warrior and exhibits the warrior ethos than cosplaying G.I. Joe wannabe Pete Hegseth any day. So I'm going to take her word and what she saw and her perspective over Pete Hegseth's. That's number one. Number two, they don't have anything. These senators who have come out, who have seen this video, have nothing to lose or run cover for by being honest and telling us what they saw. The Republican senators have a political agenda. They're trying to run cover for Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and the illegality that they're involved in. Because guess what? Every single one of those people voted for this. They voted Pete Hegseth into office. They voted for this level of incompetence, this extrajudicial approach to doing things. They were warned. They knew how Donald Trump felt about the military, how he feels about the Constitution, how he feels about the rule of law. He's a felon. He's, Miles, and the people who follow you know how Donald Trump approaches these types of things. Why can't you just shoot him in the leg? Or why can't we put up a moat with alligators? He doesn't care what the law is. And he made sure someone like Pete Hegseth would be installed in that position and then gets rid of all of the people who would hold them accountable in the legal space so they can do just this. They are going to do everything they can to make sure the American people never see the actual video come to light. Because if they do, to the same point everyone else is making here, most people will be horrified, and it will be difficult for all of the legal eagle eyes who know better to sit there and justify it. They can't. When you see it in real time, it's much more difficult to defend. This way you can still have the allure, it's interpretation, it's behind closed doors, but I would tend to lean on the side of the people who don't have any kind of politics to gain from lying about it.
Well, I will say one caveat there, and maybe this is a bright light in all of this, is today Donald Trump got spanked by the U.S. Senate on this. The defense bill came up, and in a 77-20 vote, they voted to send it to the president's desk. And in that bill, there is a condition that demands that the video be released. And now, look, I mean, my caveat here is I think what they did in that demand is they're going to hold part of Pete Hegseth's travel budget hostage until they release that video. So there's plenty of time they could drag this out. I think it's 25% of his travel budget. So I don't know, you do the math on that. You know, Pete Hegseth could go 3/4 of the way into the next fiscal year without having to worry about his plane getting grounded before they need to make some sort of decision. But it's at least something. And so, Denver, I want to throw that one to you because you voted on those defense bills before. Do you think this is going to be enough leverage to get them to do the right thing here? Or do you think the administration is going to keep playing the shell game with this thing?
Do I think they'll give enough leverage? No. It's gonna stay the same with the shell game. And I think you're gonna have a protector over in the House and Mike Johnson. And I think they're just gonna go back and forth as much as they can on redaction. And I wonder what type of legal, and I'm glad we have lawyers on here. You know, if I'm in Congress, I'm saying what type of legal action are they going to take with executive privilege? What are they going to do to try to, slow roll this? What is a professional slow roll long play? And we're looking at Hegseth with the 25% cut in his travel budget. I mean, I don't think people realize too, and I know that we have other military on here, is that I just wonder if he's going to just pick up an AMC or MAC flight, right, and fly on a C-17 somewhere, or he's going to just use Kash Patel's budget miles when he goes to see his girlfriend. But I think I think really the issue comes down to, I just don't see them moving on this. I don't think they can. I just don't see how they're going to be able to release that video. It comes to the same thing with the Epstein files, all this awful things that you see back there. The incompetency and the sycophancy, the ignorance, right? The hubris, the arrogance and the ignorance of this administration, I think prevents them from following the law. And I think they'll just try to keep wrapping it in some kind of obscure, opaque type of legal argument, or try to push it back to the president where he uses whatever privilege he has to suppress it. I mean, I think that's what they've been doing. I just think they're going to follow that same game plan, Miles.
Glenn, can I ask you big picture here? We've focused so much in the past few weeks on that second strike and, whether a war crime was committed or just the law was broken and murder was committed in a second strike. But it detracts from the much bigger picture here, the much bigger picture around this campaign, which is that the administration has made the case that these individuals are enemy combatants in a war, that they're on a battlefield and they represent an imminent threat to the United States as narco-terrorists. This whole campaign, 100 people killed who otherwise would have normally just been arrested. That's normally what we do in these drug cases. You send a boat, you arrest them. It works very well. It happens every day. But instead, they're being killed. What do you make of the overall campaign here? I mean, certainly this one episode is indicative of what's happening big picture, but it's coming into sharper and sharper relief with almost every single strike.
I think the administration's arguments fall under the weight of their own frivolity. To argue that these are, armed narco terrorists who are, preparing to flood the American streets with narcotics. I mean, how many ways is that rebutted? These tiny little boats, we don't even know that the folks are armed, but we have heard information creep out from some of the behind closed doors testimony. I believe it was by Admiral Bradley, if I'm not mistaken. One of these boats wasn't headed to the U.S., at least one of them. It was going to reportedly rendezvous with another boat that was going to take drugs to a third country. So please explain to me how we are combating narco terrorists who are involved in armed conflict when, one, we don't know they're armed, and two, at least one boat wasn't even headed to the U.S. And then there is another data point that contradicts this nonsense. Some of the members of a boat or from an earlier strike reportedly survived. And what did they do? They repatriated them. Now, there was some additional reporting that after they repatriated them, they tried to get them over to the CCOT terrorism prison in El Salvador, presumably to shut them up perhaps permanently. But if they were so dangerous that we have to murder them on the high seas, we repatriate them, what, so they can re-up and give it another try? I mean, all of these arguments fall under the weight of their own frivolity. I don't know, and he's using it all as some kind of a pretext to launch a war that nobody wants and that we should not embroil the U.S. in. And, not to mix Trump criminal apples and oranges, but, he's got how many fruits and vegetables of crime going at the same time that he's juggling. But it all reminds me of what federal court judges are saying about Donald Trump when his administration makes these arguments. You know, whether it's Judge Karen Immergut, who is a Trump appointee, saying that Trump and his administration's assertions are untethered to the facts. That could apply equally with the nonsense they're trying to sell us with respect to these boat strikes in international waters. It was Judge, I think, April Perry in Chicago, another federal court judge, who said that Trump is pouring fuel on a fire he started, you know, and chaos reigns, which is what he wants. So I don't buy any of it. If any of these arguments ever move into a court of law proper, you know, Donald Trump may be able to get some traction, Miles, in the court of public opinion. But when any of this moves into a court proper, he loses badly, spectacularly. And that's why we need to drag the Trump administration into court early and often in every case that we can.
That's absolutely right. And speaking of fruits and vegetables, we did lose Andrew because he turned into a pumpkin at 5:30, but we're going to talk on the back end here in a little bit with some of his colleagues about the other whistleblower aspects of this. You know, Denver, I want to throw you and Tara a question as we round out the conversation here about that bigger picture of apples and oranges that Glenn mentions of illegality in this administration, and ask you what the consequences are if there is not accountability on this boat strike controversy. What does it mean for all of the other things that Donald Trump is trying to do to evade the law? Tara, why don't I throw that one to you first?
Well, I think that's why you see so many people raising the alarm, sounding the alarm here, because including Republicans, because they see this as a slippery slope. I mean, this administration is involved in so many questionably legal actions, whether it's this to what's happening with ICE and the amount of civil rights violations happening virtually daily on the streets of our cities across the country, perpetrated by this Department of Homeland Security, whether it's cover that's being run for Donald Trump on the Epstein issue with Pam Bondi, whether it's going after his political enemies with these frivolous and absurd prosecutions like against his James Comey and on down, the abuse of power. The list is so long. And that doesn't even get into the financial misdeeds that are going on between Trump's family and the crypto world and these pardons, the pay to play there, the billions of dollars that Trump and his family have amassed because of the wild, wild west that is the crypto business that clearly has no regulation, and they're not interested in having any oversight there. I mean, the list is so long that I think people are starting, particularly Republicans, because they're the ones in charge for now, they're really starting to recognize if we don't do something or stand up somewhere and say something about something, that when the shoe is on the other foot, we're in big trouble. We cannot lose the full rule of law here and just when it's so obvious on certain things. And so whether there's enforcement or not, it's up to the Department of Justice, which is Pam Bondi. I'm not going to hold my breath thinking that we're going to see any of these people actually held accountable during this current administration. However, next year, when there's an opportunity to switch the Congress and get it out of the hands of the Republicans, then you can start seeing some accountability in Congress. And then in 2028, when they're voted out, I mean, we need to see Nuremberg-style trials for some of the things that these people are doing. It's so outrageous and beneath what the American Constitution represents.
Denver, what do you think a future Democratic Congress is going to do on all of this? Is it going to be, the largest federal investigation we've ever seen? You were a part of the January 6th Select Committee, which was a huge, sprawling, congressionally directed investigation that, of course, then led into Jack Smith's investigation at the Justice Department. Should we expect something even bigger is coming if they win the House?
I don't think it would happen until 28. I think 26, you'll hear the rumblings. And I think if you're Democrats, it depends on their majority, right, Miles? That's the one thing. And it depends on how much sepsis is in MAGA. And I think listening to Tara, let me explain that really quickly. I never thought that it was going to get worse before it gets better. You know, you've heard me, Miles, sometimes on my shows or when I'm in interviews, I'll always sort of make a joke. It's going to get worse before it gets worse. And now I can say it's going to get worse before it's going to get better because I think there's 3 simultaneous infections that I did not foresee. I think the first one is the Epstein files and the lack of the release of those. I think that's the first hit, right? When you got the first cut, right? And you're looking at it, they're starting to bleed a little bit. I think the second is actually healthcare and the economy. I think when you're looking at red states, right? I was in a rural district. When you're looking at rural districts, you know, that I would say north of R+8 on the PBI, right? On the political voting index. I would say that that's the second cut, right? That's a little bit deeper than even Epstein, right? Where people are like, oh my gosh, taking away our health care, the economy's in the toilet. They won't release the things, right? And MAGA's not paying attention as much as we are. Like Tara's right, like bonding and stuff like that, they're not going to do anything. But the voters, what if there's a third thing? And what if that third thing is war? What if that third thing is going through the inherent nationalistic nature of MAGA itself? And I'm wondering, the Democrats have to make that calculation. If I'm in there as a blue dog Democrat, I'm saying, okay, we got to do some investigations here. We got to look at this, but it's holding them accountable on the funding, and it's making sure they take back their Article 1 powers. Get freaking strong. Stop being wimpy, right? Go for it. But I do believe they got to see how many seats they actually take. If it's north of 40, I think you're going to see some big investigations. If it's lower than 40, it's going to be tough. And I also think that they're going to be waiting for 28 a little bit too. They can't wait too long though. But I do think, Miles, I just feel like I never thought I'd say this. I think the infection in MAGA is real. And, you know, it's in the polling and things like that. So listening to Tara, listening to Glenn, I just got this feeling it's starting to boil over. And I think that if they pop that boil, it's going to get really bad. And I think war is the third leg of this grotesqueness that you see right now in MAGA.
There is no replacement for Denver Riggleman's lexicon. No one like him. Glenn Kirshner, quick final word. You know, Denver says that the Dems have got to stop being wimpy on this. Will they?
I hope we are all learning our lesson. It is the lack of accountability. It is the lack of consequences that have brought us to exactly where we are today. You know, one of my beefs with my beloved home for decades, the Department of Justice, is federal prosecutors don't like to run the risk of losing cases. And that will be the death knell of a law enforcement agency, because if you've got the facts and you've got the law, even if it's not a bulletproof case, spoiler alert, there's no such thing as a bulletproof case. If it's a righteous case, you have to pursue it, win, lose, or draw. If you don't, you're doing a disservice to the victims of the crime and in Donald Trump's crime. And the crimes, you know, basically, I prosecuted RICO cases in federal court in Washington, D.C. The Trump administration looks a lot to me like a criminal enterprise, right? RICO is racketeer influenced and corrupt organizations. I've seen them before. We're seeing it in the Trump administration. And I'm going to give Tara the amen chorus, because if we don't have our version of the Nuremberg trials to attack the rampant lawlessness that's victimizing the American people right now, then guess what? We don't deserve to keep our republic. So how about we get our justice on as soon as we have the opportunity?
Get our justice on. I love it. Look, folks, you're probably looking at a future White House senior staff right here, or a cabinet meeting. I think each of these individuals would be considered for those posts in the future, and I hope they are. The incredible Denver Riggleman, Tara Setmeyer, and Glenn Kirshner. If you are not following these three people, you're left out, my friends. You're left out. Thank you, you guys. I appreciate your insights, your incisiveness, and your courage. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Miles.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Miles.
We're going to bring in now my co-founder of Defiance.org, Xander Schultz, the most hated person on the program. Anytime we bring him on, our numbers usually tank when Denver comes onto the screen. Sorry, Xander Schultz, not Denver. Denver's terrible. Everyone knows that. But Xander's very, very bad. And this is where people will start to leave the live stream. I think it's usually what we've usually found. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good. I mean, I was better 20 seconds ago before that intro, but I'm doing all
yeah.
right.
Sorry, I decided today I'm not going to be your hype man. I'm just gonna nag you.
Okay.
What do you got on your mind? We've got some pretty big things to discuss today on this episode.
Yeah, I mean, look, internally, you've really taken the lead on this campaign, and I'd love for you to have a chance to just share at a high level I kind of had two questions. One, just an overview. What is this campaign? What are we doing? And two, this is a first for our club in terms of previous weekly briefings have centered existing efforts. In this case, you decided really, and we all leaned in together to be catalytic. And I want to know why you thought this was a moment where we need to take that step and not just support the ecosystem, but bring the ecosystem together, including the partners that we're going to see here, and be catalytic in this moment.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is all very, very real. And when we had Glenn Kirshner on a few weeks ago, he talked about a number of different organizations that were thinking about how they could cobble together a legal defense network for U.S. service members concerned about illegal orders. And since we had that conversation with Glenn, these controversies had gotten worse and worse and worse, and more members of Congress who are privy to some of that information behind the scenes had come out publicly and said, look, something very illegal is happening here, something very illegal. And the American people need to see those underlying documents from the Justice Department that are classified. They need to see those underlying videos that haven't been shown to the American people, because as these members of Congress indicated, if people used their own judgment and saw the things they have seen behind the scenes, they would come to the same conclusion that laws are being broken here. And then you couple that, Xander, with all of the reporting of members of the military, lawyers across the executive branch who were concerned they were being directed to do illegal things. And you got to say, well, look, we can't just let the president tell them, shut your mouths. And that's what the president did. And it was worse than shut your mouths. The president of the United States was telling people when he went after these lawmakers that if you try to exercise your rights, if you dare to even think about refusing a manifestly illegal order, we're going to court-martial you. We're going to take away your freedoms. We're going to put you in prison. That is terrifying. That by design intimidates the people who might have the information needed to disclose misconduct. It does a very, very, very big disservice to the men and women in uniform in the long haul, not just on this issue, because it says to them, under no circumstances do you question an illegal order. That has happened before in American history, that people have decided, I don't want to question an illegal order. And you know what happens when that goes down? In some cases, innocent people die. Then those people who refuse to question those orders, they go to prison anyway. So as Glenn said, I know it puts our service members in a really difficult spot, but there are those competing obligations. One, to generally assume that all orders are lawful, but if something is the direction of the clear direction of the commission of a crime, you can't abide it. And you have another obligation. And so we felt like, Xander, in looking at this controversy as it was ballooning, no one was stepping forward and saying, hey, by the way, for that actual man or woman who has that issue right now, who is morally conflicted, there are real things we can do to help you out. There are real lawyers, real resources, real pro bono actions that are there ready for you to take advantage of them, again, confidentially and lawfully and securely. And we wanted to make that happen. Now, I know that in doing this, we might draw Donald Trump's ire. That's not what we're trying to do. But clearly he has shown he's got a bone to pick with anyone who wants to remind people of their obligations and their rights under the law. But we happen to be a group of people who are willing to do that. We're willing to take that risk because we want to defend good people who've served this country and make sure they don't end up in a position where they're coerced into doing something that doesn't just violate their conscience, but violates the Constitution.
And Miles, just to take a step back real quick, when you say doing this, what are we doing?
That's a great question.
You're fired up. I like the energy. Let's break it down, though.
So if folks don't know, while I'm talking about this, you can pull up a window and go to defiance.org/troops. So NBC News announced last night, they broke the story on this, that as an organization, defiance.org, in partnership with whistleblower.aid.org, is going to be launching this nationwide effort to let U.S. service members know we've got your backs. What do we mean by that? Well, we're going to help them know what their rights and responsibilities are under military law. But most importantly, we're going to raise awareness in those communities that there are lawful pathways of confidential legal advice. And also, if a crime was committed, lawful pathways of disclosure. And we're going to do that in a very simple fashion. We are blanketing these military communities with public service announcements. So the first two places, Xander, that we are going to be launching this campaign as of today are around U.S. Southern Command in Doral, Florida, and around U.S. Special Operations Command in Tampa, Florida. Why those two places? Well, those are the two commands that have been put in charge of this effort, this controversial, lethal boat strike effort that the administration has underway. And so we think if we are going to prioritize any military installations in the country to reach out to let people in the community know these resources exist, it's those two places. And that starts today.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. And with that, I think it's a perfect time to bring on a couple of our partners in this project.
Yeah, we got some rock stars to bring in here. So let's bring in Naomi Seligman, who is the Chief Strategy Officer at Whistleblower Aid. Naomi, great to have you.
Thank you, Miles. We're excited.
First repeat guest, by the way. You've earned an honor here with the Defiance community. You're our first repeat guest. It's great to see you again.
You get there's a T-shirt you get. We haven't made it yet, but at some point, uncertain in the future, you'll get that T-shirt. And then I'm excited to also bring in our friend Scott Goodstein. Scott's got a lot of accolades, but my favorite is you may know a little guy named Barack Obama who ran for public office once upon a time. His social media guru was Scott Goodstein. So there really isn't anyone better we could imagine teaming with on this campaign to make sure we go raise awareness in those communities than Scott. Welcome, my friend.
Awesome. Glad to be here.
I want a name with guru in it.
Guru,
I'll take it.
Don't you just aspire to be guru? That's right. Gosh,
be guru is something.
You just have to take it. You don't really.
Oh yeah, that's you got self-brand these days, right?
That's right. I am the guru.
For the record, I've never called myself a guru, but all good.
Fun though, Scott and I, who have worked together and known each other for decades, I think this is the first podcast or show we've ever been on in our careers together. So
another victory.
Yes.
Well, I want to throw the first question to you, Naomi, because you're a whistleblower in your own right, but look, you're helping to lead an organization that we've partnered with in other ways, and it seemed just so natural because we already had a partnership with you all to team with you on this campaign. You guys have dealt with at Whistleblower Aid so many super high profile cases. I mean, bombshell disclosures about healthcare companies and tech companies like Facebook and, presidential impeachments that, it's sort of second nature for you all to waltz into something that's controversial and say, hey, everyone, relax. There's a thing called the law, and there's people who can help advise you on it, and to be sort of that calming influence. Talk to me a little bit about that, because I think right now we might even have U.S. service members watching this and saying, yeah, it is scary times. Should I be terrified, or are my rights still protected? Do I have a pathway to go consult with someone if I think I've been told to do something illegal?
Absolutely. Yes. There is absolutely a pathway. We have for almost a decade now, we have been representing public and private sector whistleblowers. The federal workers that you're hearing out of the Trump administration right now are those, a number of those are those that we represent. Those huge tech whistleblowers that you've heard about, like Frances Haugen or Mudge. I mean, there is not a Goliath that we have been intimidated to take on. We are there, we are ready, and we have a team of attorneys and also with co-counsel around the country that can take on these cases, that can guide, that can provide the appropriate counsel, can help make sure that when you take that oath that you've taken, that we can make sure you can live up to that oath. There is no service member that should be made an illegal order. We're now in a when there are new lows with President Trump targeting civilians, targeting those that are really putting their lives on the line for this country. So the way we operate allows them to get the guidance, the representation, and the wraparound services that we provide, whether it's, the last person you have, or the last, the last friend you have in the world is a dog. We make sure that we pay vet bills. We make sure that you have mental wellness stipends. So not only are we going to make sure that you are safe and secure and legally reporting out any kind of unlawful orders, we make sure that you come out of this whole. That is our mission at whistleblowera.org. We are doubling down on that commitment right now with our partnership with Defiance.
You said veterans bills. We just had to take our dog to the vet. I should have called you first, Naomi, and said, look, I've blown the whistle before, and I need someone to pay that vet bill. I'm just kidding. It is truly remarkable that you all do that. It's not just, hey, you're going to have legal bills if you decide to blow up your life and, call out the president for breaking the law. We got you. We got you with these wraparound services. That is really, really important to someone who's thinking about coming forward and doing this. But it starts with, first and foremost, just knowing their rights, just even being aware that they have an option other than going to their desk each day and saying, well, is today the day I go to my boss and say, hey, boss, I think the president told us to do something illegal, knowing that conversation is not going to go well. And so, Scott, I want to ask you, when it comes to that very, very first step of raising awareness, one of the things that we've done is gone back to basics here is, where do you reach people? Well, one way you can reach them is on the way to work. I think our producer can put up on the screen here, we're starting with billboards. Let's find these military installations and let's go on Google Street View and let's ride down the street and see what billboards we can go by to make sure that we're reaching those folks on their way to work, on the way home, and have that first conversation. Talk to me about how you think about that as a communications professional, not just the billboards, but how to first reach someone on a campaign like this in a disarming way and to get their attention.
Sure. I mean, look, Senator Kelly started all this and started the brainstorming where it was like, if he's talking about refusing any orders, where did you first see that video? And it was like on your phone. And so for me, I'm thinking about how are we able to reach more people? And so me and Miles, full disclosure, right, did some back and forth brainstorming. Like, are you seeing this? Like, we need to get this message in the hands of everybody that works around the bases, everybody that's got a family member that's a service member, every service member. And so everything from similar to Naomi doing 360 services, you see media at 360. You see media on your phone. You look up from your phone. You're going to see media on the billboards. You go shopping at the local bodega. There's going to be different signs there. You go even to the gas pump. There's even going to be a 7-second little talking thing at the gas. So we want to surround the areas and the neighborhoods and the communities that are impacted the most by this.
Xander, I want to bring you back into the conversation because we had a discussion that I'm happy to have openly with our members here about what the consequences might be in going and defending these service members. This is not an environment where you can go do routine things like this anymore easily. Something as simple as know your rights training is now controversial. And you and I were talking about that the other day, about how, things like knowing your rights sound boring and, just kind of ordinary. But right now, the president of the United States says it is sedition. It's sedition. It's punishable by death, potentially, to go tell people that they have a right and responsibility to refuse manifestly illegal orders. And you look back at me on the screen and said, yeah, okay, let's do it. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah, this is right out of the authoritarian playbook, right? This is blind obedience trying to be enforced via fear. And so this, and honestly, the creation of an emergency like the war in Venezuela, are both out of the fascist playbook. And so I think the benefit we have, and we mentioned this on the podcast yesterday, is we do have 1930s Italy and Germany to look back on. We don't have to sit on our hands. We know the consequences. We know there's not safety and obedience, that things just get worse. And so I'm excited that we are in the American people in the Defiance Club are engaging at this stage of the emergency. It's really important that we do. And, Miles, I had a question for you, because you haven't been in exactly the seat, but you were in a seat like this. I just wonder, what was your journey like? Where was your headspace at from kind of, you were present for a lot of unlawful orders. Your journey from I'm seeing this to I'm going to do something about it, and what was critical in that journey?
Well, Naomi will know about this too, and I want to get her take on it. It's sort of like a moral choose your own adventure that is not so much an adventure, because when you're on this pathway, when you've witnessed misconduct, you do feel very alone. No one tells you when you go into government, hey, by the way, if you see the big boss break the law, call this 800 number. That doesn't exist. And so you hear this with almost anyone who decides to blow the whistle, is that at the beginning, they're asking themselves, what do I do next? What's the way to go about this? Now, the circumstances that I was in inside the Trump administration were especially frustrating, because I wasn't fully alone in this. I had superiors in the president's cabinet that shared the same view, that vehemently felt like Donald Trump was on the side of breaking the law almost every day. He had the inclination toward illegality, and yet none of them wanted to call it out. So from underneath them, I had to figure out, how do we start to have this conversation in the United States about how the president's own team views him as a danger to the fabric of our republic? Now, the difference in my case was there wasn't one specific unlawful order that I felt like the American people needed to know about. There were dozens of attempted efforts by Donald Trump while I was there to break the law, and we were sliding up on an election where we had to decide whether we were going to fire or rehire this man. So I made the choice to take my disclosures initially into the political sphere, as in the public sphere, as in to tell people, here are all the things that are happening, because you've got to go take a vote. You've got to go decide whether to keep this guy in office. And I don't think there's going to be time to litigate it slowly from the inside, make disclosure on issue after issue. Now, what I will say, I'm going to add a caveat like I always do. What I will say is, I didn't know that organizations like the Government Accountability Project, like Whistleblower Aid, like all of these different groups existed out there until after the fact, until after I came forward. And I've even said to Naomi before, if I had known that Whistleblower Aid existed, I absolutely would have gone to them as my first phone call amidst all of this and said, look, here are the list of things I can make disclosures about right now. How do we sequence this? What's the right way to go about this? What are the right avenues of disclosure? And I think I could have had an even bigger impact, and potentially on some of those issues held Donald Trump to account legally in ways he's not been, if I had taken that path. But Naomi, I want to throw it to you on that front, because I think you hear that from a lot of people who come forward as whistleblowers to your organization.
100%, Miles. We are hearing, public servants inside the government every single day. As you know, we can only take 10% of the folks that are coming to us, because there are so many people who want to say, I want to do the right thing, who wake up in the morning and say, I'm not gonna be a part of it anymore. Right? What's their point? And when they reach their breaking point, they get in touch with us. So that is all happening within the, and a lot of those folks that are coming to us are anonymous way. They do not want to disclose publicly, because, as you know, Miles, it's a really terrifying path and prospect in this administration to come forward. So we're working with them on an anonymous basis, or if they want to be public, we know what kind of impact they've had. Obviously, Miles, you've had that impact. When I was a whistleblower, it was fascinating, because the administration I was working for decided to set up a hotline for folks to call if there was some wrong. And what happened was, when folks would call, because it was internal to the mayor's administration, they would then tell the chief of staff who would say, we got to figure out who the person is, because they would tell them what was coming in. So it was a fox in the hen house. So we were able for folks to come legally, responsibly, because we know what's going on in this administration, but we also, there's so much we don't know. And we want to make sure these service members who put everything on the line have a place to go where they feel safe and secure. And just like you, Miles, lots of folks don't know that these organizations exist. So we're so happy partnering with Scott and Defiance to make sure that they know that our services exist, because what we're doing every single day is just going to now apply to all the service members that need our help as well. So we're thrilled to both of you.
Well, I will say, Xander, this would be, I think, a good moment. We've got members of the defiance.org community who are going to announce our surprise today about how we as a club are going to approach this first week of the campaign and what level of effort we are putting in. Xander, you want to tee that up for us?
Yeah. Enough of our faces for a bit. Let's get some club members up here. We've got John Sealing and Tony Sealing from California, and let's bring on that message from them, Mercedes.
Hi, my name is Tony Sealing from Mill Valley, California.
And I'm John Sealing from San Carlos, California. We're proud members of the Defiance.org team. We are thrilled to announce we are launching a $50,000 campaign to make U.S. service members aware of their legal rights, including what to do when confronted with manifestly unlawful orders, and to help provide them with legal support if needed.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I hope that if you're watching right now, you're hitting the heart button, you're hitting the like button, you're hitting the subscribe button, because this is awesome news. Now, this is a combination of things. Unlike our usual pro-democracy Oprah scene, it's not like there's a one person or group that's going to be on the receiving end of this grant, but this is the initial spend of effort and ad funding and in-kind contributions that are going towards bringing this all live. So if you haven't yet, go check out defiance.org/troops. These are the resources that we are going to make available in those military communities. And I'll tell you this, our goal is to make sure that anyone that's in one of those military communities that we are going to initially sees these ads, sees these public service announcements, understands that these resources are available to them. And that's what we're going to do. And there's no more important place to be doing this right now than around U.S. Southern Command and around U.S. Special Operations Command. Scott, I want to get your reaction to that, and also maybe get your thoughts on how in the long term we can scale something like this nationwide. Oh, we've still got you muted.
Am I muted?
There you go.
There you go. All right. No, this is look, this is great, but it takes time and effort to scale. I mean, we've got the downloadable flyers on the website as well. Oh, it's in front of me, defiance.org/troop. But in addition to that, we're talking about, going to fitness clubs around the bases. We're going to a bunch of different avenues on people's mobile phones that live around the bases, to billboards that will be on streets within a mile of the base. So the goal of this is to expand that, for weeks, and then look, who knows if what the next bases are that our president takes action from. And so, Miles has rightly picked out these bases in Doral and Tampa. Also, fun fact, Doral is also where President Trump's got a golf course. So we will be heavily targeting Doral over the next couple weeks.
I don't suppose that the president, Scott, would give us a discount on advertising at the golf course. I don't know. We'll take a look.
He's noticing those billboards or not, but our goal is to make sure that all of the military folks know this message, know the resources. And then to what Whistleblower Aid does is making sure that while they're learning about it on our site, they're going and being able to safely, securely, anonymously, however they want. That's going to Whistleblower Aid's dedicated website nounlawfulorders.org.
Amazing. Well, look, we have to get to the next part of the program, which is Xander and I will dive in with defiance.org members on how they can personally get involved. And I will just say, as we close out here, already members of defiance.org have made this happen. Their membership fees have made it possible to launch this campaign. We have heard from many of you that this is something that you wanted to do. This is an action that you wanted to see taken. And so we are thrilled to be able to do this. We are thrilled to be able to go have the backs of our service members and to hopefully scale this campaign. If you are watching this right now and you are not a member of defiance.org, but you want to help with the campaign, you want to get this in front of military communities, then go to that website, defiance.org/troops. You can contribute to the legal defense of service members who come forward. You can contribute to bringing this campaign into other communities around the country. You can get personally involved, even if you are not a member. So thank you to Naomi for everything you do, for partnering with us on this campaign. Thank you, Scott, for your extraordinary expertise and all of your hard work to make this possible. You two are patriots of the highest order.
Thank you, Miles. We are so thrilled to be partnering with you, and thanks for having us on today.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me on, and I'm going to get back to work.
Awesome. Thank you, friends. Fantastic. Xander, we get to round this out with telling folks how they can take action themselves. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this week because I know, oftentimes the most effective thing you can do is call your senator or call your congressperson, which is important, but maybe not the most exciting experience.
It gets boring to do that. We're going to keep telling people to do that, by the way, because there are going to be so many issues where we need you to call your member of Congress.
Yeah.
But this week, let's go out there in the world and do things.
This is not that. Scott mentioned that 360 presence for military members is important. We're going to need the Defiance members to provide that 360 coverage. So this campaign is all about letting military members know there's somewhere safe they can go. And we're going to ask for you to participate in letting them know in a number of ways. Mercedes, if you could throw up that graphic. We have posters for you to distribute near military hubs. So these are things like bases, recruitment centers, MEPS, ROTC units, National Guard and Reserve centers, et cetera. So we have these big posters for you to distribute, put up and distribute near those centers. We're going to have wallet cards for you to have on yourself for when you cross a pass with military members. Something small you can provide them so they're aware of this campaign. We also have, obviously, low-hanging fruit, posting on social media, always helpful. A lot of us have big, diverse networks. There's military members across them. Please post on social media. And then lastly, and more intimately, calling military members that you may know or families, military families that you know, just letting them know this is there for them. We are going to try to make this as easy as we can. So as Scott mentioned earlier on defiance.org/troops, we're going to have assets online for you to either post on social media or to download and print. If you'd like it to be even easier to get these things, we're going to create items on our store so you can buy the posters or buy the business cards. We're going to do this as close to cost as we can. We're not trying to make a buck off you. We're just trying to make your life easier if you desire it that way. And we'll also share recommended copy for those conversations with military members and military families. Those can be touchy. This is not meant to be confrontational at all. It's meant to be supportive and just an FYI for folks that may be in a position like Miles was, so many years ago. And we could shorten the time between them seeing and witnessing unlawful things and being able to be an asset to the American people and the public and helping us understand what's going on. So that's the campaign. That's the actions this week. It's not one action. It's a bunch of them. We're here to be supportive in helping you execute on those actions. And, we've been even considering the new year doing some office hours for Defiance members to meet up maybe on Zoom so we can do these things together as well. So look forward to that. And yeah, I'm so excited about this campaign.
Well, and you know what we'll do this week is, Xander, remind me, is the weekly coffee we do with members. Let's have you join the weekly coffee. And as we're doing catch up and taking Q&A from members at the weekly members only coffee, let's go back through our actions and give people the opportunity to do that there. I think that'll be a great thing. But look, folks, I'll pick up on what Xander said and just say from experience, this is very real. I mean, I normally hear folks when they talk about a public service, campaign say, post on social media. And I think, God, what difference is that going to make? Other people will do that. I don't need to do that. it makes a difference. Like I said, if I had been, when I was in government, if I had seen posts from friends about, whistleblower aid or some of these other organizations, it might have changed my thinking. It might have allowed me to have a greater impact in calling out presidential misconduct that I had witnessed. And so we've literally tried to make this as easy as possible for folks so that we can get in front of those service members and others. You have no idea, I'm sure, who in your social media followings might be connected to family members and friends that serve in the military that might be in a position right now where they're concerned about what's happening. And so if you just go to the website, we got language there. You can just copy and paste it right now. If you're listening, you could go to defiance.org/troops. You don't have to give anything. You don't have to download a poster. You could just scroll down and share on social media this message. Don't let anyone threaten our service members. Help them defend their rights and obey only lawful orders. And then it points them towards those resources and the site, including the confidential portal where they can reach out to and get those legal services. This is awesome, defiance.org community members, that you have been supportive of doing something like this. I applaud you for your bravery and being willing to take this on. I will tell you that today, I don't want to call any of them out without their permission, but a number of the members of Congress who were involved in sounding the alarm initially about illegal orders have reached out to us to express their gratitude that defiance.org is doing this when other groups would not, that we are stepping forward and telling those men and women in uniform that we will protect them. So that's exciting stuff. Xander, anything else to add on actions? You're muted. This happens, people. This happens. 21st century, and we still forget that mute button.
It's been 5 years since the pandemic. I still don't have this down at all. No, Miles, unless you have something else to add. I mean, the only thing, just to, in case anyone's feeling some anxiety, is just remembering we follow up with all our members with an email the following day, laying all this out simply. So don't worry. You don't have to jot it down in a panic. This is all going to be in your inbox tomorrow.
But we do have one more ask, which is, if you live in or around Doral, Florida, or Tampa, Florida, send us a direct message, because that is where this campaign initially is focused. And we've got some extra special things that you could help with. So send us a direct message on our various social media platforms. Our producer will tell me if we have a favorite one, but I think it could be easiest on Substack. Our producer says Substack. So if you are a defiance.org member and you just go to our members information site, defiance.news, you can send us a direct message there, or actually you can just reply to any email we have sent you via Substack. You can just reply and that will go into our system. So let us know if you live near Doral, Florida, or Tampa, Florida, and want to be involved. But to any member or anyone watching anywhere else, you can just go to the website, download a poster, put it up somewhere. This could change someone's life. This could protect a service member from doing something stupid that they shouldn't do, because not every order is unlawful and not every order is lawful. Or it could make sure that they don't commit a crime unwittingly that they're being directed to do. So either way, we're going to make sure that they have that support, and you could be the linchpin. Please do that. Please help. Let's go into our final segment here today. I know we're into overtime. We love to do this segment. Who is joining the Defiance? Because this is a reminder every day, folks, that our ranks are growing. There are more and more people joining the Defiance, and you may not be thrilled to have a new member joining the club today, but I'll tell you who's joining the club. I don't think he has signed up for defiance.org, but his name is Ted Cruz. He's a United States Senator from Texas, and our producer Mercedes will let me know if she's seen him sign up for membership since we started. But even if he hasn't, today and the past couple weeks, he's shown that he's more interested in flirting with the idea of being a member of the Defiance. And during Trump 2.0, we have seen Ted Cruz standing up on an issue that is, I think, near and dear to all of our hearts. In fact, it happens to be the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, not the second or third or 12th. And at an FCC oversight hearing before the Senate Commerce Committee this week, that senator challenged the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, about his commitment to free speech. Take a listen.
Another area of agreement between you and I is that Jimmy Kimmel is angry, overtly partisan, and profoundly unfunny. That, sadly, is true for most late-night comedians today who seem to have been collectively broken by President Trump's election. Jimmy's remarks about Charlie Kirk were tasteless, and ABC and its affiliates would have been fully within their rights to fire him or simply to no longer air his program. That was their choice. But what government cannot do is force private entities to take actions that the government cannot take directly. Government officials threatening adverse consequences for disfavored content is an unconstitutional coercion that chills protected speech. Democrat or Republican, we cannot have the government arbitrating truth or opinion. Mr. Chairman, my question is this. So long as there is a public interest standard, shouldn't it be understood to encompass robust First Amendment protections to ensure that the FCC cannot use it to chill speech?
Now, that may be a little bit of a backhanded way of joining the defiance. I can't say I agree with Ted Cruz about Jimmy Kimmel. I find Jimmy Kimmel to be completely hilarious and handling this whole thing very well. But it is notable that Ted Cruz continues to put Donald Trump's FCC chairman's feet to the fire. He has done it over and over again. He has needled them for veering off of their obligations and, in fact, veering towards running over the First Amendment. And for that, we applaud him. For that, I reluctantly say, Ted Cruz, come join us. Anyway, that's who's joining the Defiance. Maybe, potentially. I don't know. Like I said, we'll see if he signs up at defiance.org as a member. I'm not going to hold my breath, but I'm glad that Ted Cruz is showing a little bit of courage here. Xander, what's your take? I suspect you're moving to Texas to vote for him.
As someone who used to have donors donate every time Cruz tweeted and it went to black-led organizing in his state, probably not moving to Texas to go hang out with Cruz. I've been in his opposition for a while, but this is not hard. Fighting fascism is not hard. Fight for free speech, fight for our Bill of Rights, fight for our Constitution. People across the ideological spectrum can do it. And maybe we've just become so cynical about people doing that, especially in Trump's Republican Party. But it's nice to see it happen over and over and over again. And it's honestly given me a lot of hope the last couple of weeks that even with the Republican majority in both houses, we may, in fact, be able to defy him with this set of Congress people before the midterms in meaningful ways.
In very meaningful ways, including what we talked about today. So, folks, I know you're tired of hearing it. Miles, we know the web address, defiance.org/troops. Do it. If you care about the rule of law in this country, if you care about U.S. service members, help them get protection. We're not telling them that they need to go defy the president. That's not what we are doing. We are telling them that resources are available if they are concerned about orders they have received. And that might be helping U.S. service members figure out that orders they've received are legal. That's just as important as helping them figure out if an order they've received is not legal. Because either way, they are going to make a great decision of consequence in their lives and the life of our nation. So help us do that, friends. This is a very important cause to be involved in. I will just say a big thank you to folks joining us today. If you are here because you're a member of defiance.org and you're here for the weekly mission briefing, which we do every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, you might be missing out on the other days because every single weekday we are live at 5 p.m. Eastern on Substack, on YouTube, on X, maybe on other platforms I don't know about. We're live talking about the news of the day. We do these dispatches for the Defiant because it is important for us to stay informed if we are going to make the best decisions as a club of courageous Americans on how to fight back. We got to be aligned on what's happening and what matters and how we can do something about it. So please join us on those other days for Defiance Daily. Reminder, tomorrow, actually, there will be no show on Thursday. So even though I told you, join us every day at 5 p.m., tomorrow's an exception. A lot of crazy things happening around the holidays, namely air travel that gets screwed up. And so tomorrow, we're going to give you a break. Do whatever you want at 5 p.m. Eastern. But don't forget to join us this Friday because we're going to round out the year with a special conversation about a year of defiance. You may be thinking a lot of dark things happened this year, but a lot of really, really good things happened this year. And I am personally feeling quite bullish about the direction that the defiance is going in this country. So join us Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern for that closeout conversation for the year before we take 2 weeks off on a programming break. And then finally, tonight, if you're going to be watching the president's speech, watch it with us. Watch it with us here. We'll be going live just before Donald Trump speaks live to the nation from the Oval Office at 9 p.m. Eastern. So you can tune in just a little bit before 9. We'll be starting the conversation about that address. We still don't know fully what the president's going to be talking about tonight. A lot of speculation that he's going to be talking potentially about war in Venezuela, or at least this embargo of oil boats and potentially his agenda for the years to come. Either way, it will be important for us to assess what the president is doing or thinking about doing. So join us tonight for that conversation. We have some special guests. We will be joined by former U.S. Senator John Tester and a number of others who will be in that conversation. So come be with us for that tonight. Thank you for joining Defiance Daily Dispatches for the Defiant. As always, friends, stay loud, stay brave, and stay together.